Hello and welcome to another episode of English Podcast with Paul. I'm your host, Paul. Okay, just jumping straight in. Today we're talking about guns. Guns specifically in America. Okay, it's a very contentious topic. Many people are passionate for one side or the other. So we're just going to have a little look today at some of the articles I found about the topic and discuss it and break it down a little bit. All right, so just jump straight in. Most Americans want their country's gun laws to be more strict, according to a survey over 1,000 people by the Associated Press, NORC, Center for Public Affairs Research. Like I said, so this is in America, all right? The survey found that 67% of Americans want gun laws to be stricter, while 22% they should be left as they are, and just 10% think they should be made less strict. Well, that's interesting figures. 10% said they should be less strict, and 22% said should be as they are. All right, okay. The poll showed that the Americans believe that churches, synagogues, mosques, and other places of worship have become less safe over the past 2 decades. Well, that's pretty scary, isn't it? You know, you're in a place of worship. You feel like you can let your guard down. You feel like you can relax and connect to your God or your deity. So, not being able to relax, that's got to be a big concern. All right. Nearly 710 people in elementary and high schools have become less safe than they used to be, and 50% said that same about colleges and universities. All right. When it comes to place of entertainment, the public have mixed views. Nearly half considered concerts to be less safe than they were in the past, and about as many said the same about bars and restaurants. All right, okay, that's interesting. Okay. While many consider public transport system to be less safe, about a third of Americans say airports have become safer over the last 20 years. Well, that makes sense. Airport security is one of the first places where you stop somebody coming in or going out with weapons, because obviously you don't want an airplane hijacked. That's a big concern. Okay. Airports over the last 20 years, likely because of strict security was increased following the 9/11 terror attacks in New York. Yeah. The United States has the highest rate of civilian ownership in the world, according to a 2017 survey by the Pew Research Center. PEW, Pew Research Center. They do a lot of research for Americans and for some of these articles that I read. So that is I don't want to say a reputable research company, but it's a common research company. All right, 42% of Americans own a gun themselves or live with somebody who does. All right, okay. So that's just like one article. What else we got here? We got what's this one? Arkansas's teachers are carrying guns. So there was a shooting in Arkansas, and one of those teachers, Mr. Dale Creswell, who works in a school, says he keeps a gun with him at all times, whenever he's in class, whenever he's at sporting events, and I'm assuming when he's at home. And he says that he's there not just for one student, he's there for all the students to protect the students. And talking of schools, I recently saw a YouTube video where a teacher moved all the chairs to one side of the classroom, and then she pulled this big handle and you pulled it all out, and it was a bit like a folding door, and as it come out you can see it's a big room with from top to bottom, big hard walls, I guess, but retractable, and a door and I guess lock on it. And this was a safe room. So they were happy they had this big safe room. I mean, it did take her a few minutes to pull it out, maybe a couple of minutes to pull it out, these doors, and to get inside. But still, happy having a safe room in your school? That would be worrying to me. That'd be worrying to me. All right. School shootings across the US in recent years. Several school shootings across the US in recent years. School safety has become increasingly important. Well, yeah, obviously. A study by Vice News. Some people might have heard of Vice News. Again, a bit more of a reputable news corporation, maybe. Vice News, what did it say? In March, found that 14 of 50 American states armed teachers with guns. Wow, goodness me. Okay, right. Moving on to the next article. Millions in the US carry guns daily, expert says. So this is talking about the numbers. For this study, research analysed data from 2019 National Firearms Survey done by a research firm. Again, it's just talking about the amount of guns people carry. Then there's also a mention of the Guardian. Will probably be even higher. So the figures are probably even higher for people holding guns. Average gun holder, oh, you got to wait 18 days. I think figures showed that owners who said they had carried their handguns that month had done so on average for 18 days. Oh, okay, beg your pardon. So for 18 days of the month, people are carrying their guns on average. On average. I mean, I don't know how you work that out. You like count the days and mark a little thing on your calendar. I don't know. All right, okay. That's research for you, isn't it? I think on this article I saw something interesting a bit further down. Yeah, do you find it surprising? 53 million US gun owners in 2019. All right, so there's a lot of controversy, a lot of discussion in America going on on a regular basis. Okay. That was the article, this one here. So this one is called about the students marching on Washington and protesting over gun violence. Again, this was another gun shooting, and they mentioned Donald Trump. So in one of the other articles, Donald Trump said that if teachers want them, they should be allowed to carry guns with them in school. And then at the bottom of this article, one of the discussions, it said, do you think I've lost it now. I've lost it. Basically, it said, do you think that ministers and government officials, politicians, that's the word I was looking for, politicians should be ashamed of gun law? So this one also talks about a listening session, positive results of a listening session. I think that's another way to push people back. Push people back. All right, okay. So that one's not very exciting. I got a couple more here, and then we'll debate it a bit further. All right, and we'll look at the other side of the coin. All right, gun violence in the US increased 30% during the pandemic. I mean, I think maybe people got a little bit crazy during the pandemic, like we all did from the lockdowns and the government restrictions and hospital waiting times and all these, all the restrictions for such a long time and lack of expressing yourself through activities, you know, and meeting with other people really had a massive effect in COVID on a lot of people, as well as the COVID deaths. Okay, so what does this one say? The first year of the pandemic, people are ordered to stay at home. Yeah, we know that. Business closed, million people, yeah. Couldn't meet friends, blah, 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 blah. Oh, yeah, causing a psychological stress and depression contributed the spike in gun violence. Okay, so yeah, depression and psychological stress. All right, yeah, that's a big part of it, I'd imagine, during the pandemic, gun violence. And then I said this one. President Donald Trump spoke at length about advocating arming teachers with guns to thwart, that's an interesting word, to thwart campus shootings. He suggested up to 40% of classrooms could see teachers qualify in shooting guns, that such instructors would get a little bit of a bonus. Well, if the instructors get a bonus, then there's a bias for them wanting more. Okay. Okay. So actually, Donald Trump said that it would be crazy if every person had, if they had a lot more active shooter drills for defensive measures. Donald Trump said that would be crazy. Why having more active drills to practice and rehearse if there is a shooting. Why would that be crazy? Surely that'd be more sensible. Okay, all right. All right, let's moving on to the last one. And the last one. Okay, gun comparison to the rest of the globe. All right, so in Canada, you have to be 18, you have to be background checked, you have to do a police safety course, and ordinary rifles and shotguns are not restricted. So you can have a rifle and a shotgun, whereas handguns and semi-automatic weapons are restricted. All automatic weapons are prohibited. Okay, that's good, that's good. What about Australia then? What about Australia? In 1996, after a mass shooting killed 35 people, the Australian government banned automatic and semi-automatic firearms. They also brought back 650,000 guns, brought them back off the nation. And you have to wait a period of 28 days. Okay, all right. What about in the UK? Okay, again, the UK, there was a gun amnesty, and people brought their guns back in after a gun shooting in Dunblane in Scotland in 1996. Even stricter laws at that point. Handguns are not permitted, but citizens can obtain a rifle or shotgun by the police. And self-defense is not considered a valid reason to own a firearm. All right, so I can attest that living in the UK, basically, if you're caught with a firearm, a handgun, let's say, if you're caught with a handgun, you're talking 5 years in prison. So many robbers that may rob a post office, which was popular back in the 70s and 80s and 60s, if you did a robbery, if it was armed robbery, that's instant 5 years in jail. No way about it. You know, you can't argue it. There's no getting out early. 5 years. So most people that rob generally didn't use a firearm. But now we have an increase in knife violence, but it's very rare. I know England is a small country, or Great Britain is a small country, but in comparison, it's very rare. You know, you might hear of one or two a year in a big city centre, right? And that's generally to the point where it's a deprived place, a deprived community, and people are very, very desperate. You know, like all of these people, they're generally desperate, or there's mental health issues. We'll get onto that in a moment. Okay, so in the UK, if you're a farmer or you look after some land and you've got animals on that land, then normally you can get a shotgun license, and many farmers will have like salt rounds or salt pellets that they would shoot at an animal, something like that. And occasionally you'd hear of, say, badger hunting, where a specific person has been giving license to kill badgers on a farmer's land. Again, it's not something I advocate, it's not something I like. That's another story. So yeah, it's very rare. There's clay pigeon shooting as a hobby, clay pigeon shooting, that happens more amongst the aristocracy or those that want to pretend to be aristocracy. And you will see occasionally real shooting of birds. So people are going to into the bushes, and again, that's where the term comes from, beating about the bush. Proper people with vests, I guess with a vest, will go into the bushes and stick and make a lot of noise, try to scare the birds out, and then they will get shot by somebody with a shotgun a bit further away, and then a dog will bring them back. You know, a retriever dog will bring them back. I don't appreciate that. I prefer clay pigeons myself. I don't think anything should be killed and shot for the fun of it. That's another story. So yeah, clay pigeon shooting, that still happens in the UK. Guns are really, really rare to see here in the UK. Obviously, when you go to the airport, you'll see a few people with guns, and occasionally you might see an armed officer in a city around maybe a parliamentary building or an important security risk. But generally, by banks and your average security guard doesn't wear anything like that, any guns at all. Guns are really, really rare to see, really rare to see. So when we go to other countries, so recently I went to Cambodia, and well, I lived there for a year, and then prior to the pandemic, I lived there for another year. Most of the police and army will have firearms, but nobody's flailing around or being silly with it, and they're not allowed to take them into the banks or anything like that. Okay, so for us to see one, it's like, wow. All right, UK. Japan. Only guns are permitted are shotguns and air guns. Those used for research and competition, yeah. You need formal instruction and pass a series of written, mental and drugs tests, as well as rigorous background checks. In addition, they must follow storage guidelines and firearms for annual inspections and stuff like that. That's Japan. Okay. Now Singapore, get this. Singapore is the worst, all right, for guns. And so the strictest gun laws. Ordinary citizens are not allowed to access firearms. Any person caught with a gun is punishable by physical beating. You imagine that, physical beating. You're getting hit with sticks because you got a gun. Wow. Okay, physical beating. That's different. All right. If someone tries to fire a weapon, the punishment is death. Oh my God, death. Wow. Finally, if a person is caught with multiple weapons, it's assumed that they are selling firearms and can be punished by death or life imprisonment. Wow, wow, that's pretty darn strict. That is pretty darn strict. All right. Okay, so that's a briefly a bit around the world and other countries. I don't know what it's like in your country. Maybe you could leave a comment below what the gun laws are like in your country. Okay, so now looking at the flip side of the coin, I spoke recently to an American friend of mine about gun laws, and he was very calm. He was actually a very intelligent guy, a very intelligent man, and he was very calm, and he was like, yeah, I understand. Some people are on the fence, and it is interesting. He said because in some counties, I think he was talking about Texas, but in some places it is kind of normal for people to have firearms, and it's just a normal everyday thing. Maybe because it's gone back for many years, back to the days of when they first moved to the country, and they were defending themselves and things like this, before there was a proper police force and military, so to speak, I guess. So maybe it's just more tradition. But he said that if you go in a convenience store or a garage, or, petrol station or somewhere like that, and somebody comes in to try and rob the place, there's a high chance that 80 to 90% of the people in that shop will have a handgun with them loaded. And so when you go into a shop, you feel much safer because there's very little chance of it getting robbed. And if you're in a county where you have a gun, relaxed gun laws, and you have a gun, there's very little chance of you getting robbed, unless obviously you're in a very deprived area. So they feel safer because people know, and I guess this is a bit like having a guard dog at your house. The dogs at your house, you're less likely to get robbed. And that's statistically proven. If you have dogs, there's a lower risk of getting robbed. So it's kind of like the same thing as that. If people know that you're a gun carrier, and there may be guns at your home, or you're that kind of prepper, that sort of person, then there's less chance that you're going to get robbed because people know this. Those that are going to rob you tend to have a moment of self-preservation and think to themselves, I don't think I'll rob that house because it's it's I don't know, people with guns and a bit more, I don't know. Whereas another county or another place, they may be more relaxed or liberal and less likely to have a gun, and so they might think that that's a better place to rob. So I thought that's a very interesting concept, a very interesting idea. And I also understand that if you're in the woods, like in Yosemite Park or Yellowstone Park or somewhere like that, one of the big nature reserves, that there is a chance that a grizzly bear could come out at you. But then I've seen videos where a tour guide has gone running up to the bear because he knew what he was doing, and the bear turned and walked away. So I'm a little bit confused. If you don't need a gun to scare a bear away, but then I guess if you want to go camping and you've got a bear coming in after your food or after you when you're in a tent and you're asleep, that can be a very treacherous and dangerous situation. Now, I don't have any statistics as to how many bears have killed humans or how many other wild animals like wild lions or cats or cougars that are in these nature parks that have killed humans. So in that front, I can't attest to whether having a firearm is a safe and a wise idea. So, although to most people like me, it seems very cut and dry about the more guns you have, the more shootings you have, talking to my American friend, it seems that there's a lot more things going on. So also, then you'd have to look at the money and influence that the American Rifle Association has on politicians and government. You know, and likewise, like we said earlier, regards to the gun instructors making money. You know, I'd imagine most people are very, very competent and very level-headed and very normal people and safe, conscious when it comes to guns, because they're all aware of people dying from gun violence. And it is generally a case of a deprived area where a convenience store may be attempted robbery. But there is two sides to this coin. There is two sides to it. And also there's the fact of people's rights that they had for hundreds of years. You know, the Bill of Rights and things like that, and freedoms. So that's another aspect. It's not as easy as I thought. It's not as cut and dry as I thought. So breaking it down then, you've got the safety aspect for your home and your family. You've got the safety aspect of being out in the woods or being out camping. You've got the personal rights side of things. And then also you've got, well, you could say safety on the other side of it as well. And then again, another aspect that we haven't really looked at is in regards to the people that do these shootings, the mental health issues. Now, is that part of the government or part to blame of culture not supporting these individuals that are struggling? Now, we're not talking about gangs and gang warfare, you know, taking over one territory, another territory, or somebody don't want to pay for their drugs and things like this. I'm talking more about individuals that are unstable in their mind, you know, individuals that have real bad issues, you know, psychosis and things like that. So is that becoming more prevalent? Is that more, I don't know, common these days because of other influences, because of money, because of taxes, because of lack of facilities and lack of being able to access the facilities for mental health and mental care. You know, we've seen the film, the American film, was it Falling Down with Michael Douglas, where eventually you just lose your mind, where you're just sick to death of being pushed and pulled in all ways and all the bad things that happen to you. And so in that film, he gets fed up with so many aspects of his life pushing against him and making him feel bad. And so mental health could be looked at being addressed. So I don't know about other countries, but in the UK, we have the National Health Service, which is free. And even for us, where we have free national health, it takes a long time to get the medical help you need for addressing issues such as depression and anxiety and schizophrenia. We have psychological wards and hospitals where you can check yourself in, but you have to still meet strict criteria. You have to be saying that you're at risk to yourself or others. And often this comes too late. You become arrested first and then you might go to a psychiatric hospital. And I've worked in some of these and they are scary places. Some of these people are very unhinged, very unwell. Often it's down to abuse of drugs or alcohol, but again, that is part of self-medicating for your own sanity. So if, for example, are we all able to get to that place at one point? If you lost your job for whatever reason, and then you'd lose your wife and your family, and you lose your home, and you end up on the streets, Are we not all capable of it all slipping away and we all losing it at some point? That's an interesting thought. So even in the UK, there's mental health issues that's very difficult to address. So instead of being about gun law, is this video more about mental health awareness? Is it more about what we should try to do and look out for our friends and family and stay connected and help one another for those bad moments, those bad days when everything falls on top of one another? You know, there was a big thing in the UK about, oh, be kind, because everybody's stressed with the pandemic. But I think in other countries there's more love, there's more help, there's more connection with the humans. You know, it's easy to say, you lost your job, that's your fault. You lost your wife and family, that's your fault. You lost all your money in your house, that's your fault. But we are only human. We are only human at the end of the day. And if there's more support and more help, I imagine other countries have more mental health facilities to support people that are struggling. Because everybody goes through trauma at some point. Everybody struggles at some point in their life. If you don't, then you're a very lucky and privileged individual. But in general, we all struggle and we all have a lot of trauma and problems to deal with over our lifetime. So you've got to ask, is it down to the government? Is it the government that should be helping? Should it be us be more polite and helpful and kind? Or is it all the things that are happening in our world these days? The stresses, the anxiety, the pressure from COVID, from new communities and political correctness? Is it the environment? There's many different factors, I guess. It's a lot to think about, and not as quite cut and dry as I'd assumed. Interesting. Okay. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know if you've struggled and suffered with a trauma, or if you have gun violence in your country. Tell me in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts. So yeah, message below. All right, so that's it for today. That's all we're going to talk about today. Remember, keep enjoying English. Keep having fun. Keep having interesting conversations and debates. Being open-minded. All right, so that's it for today. Don't forget you could look at stuff on our Instagram or on our website, English Podcast with Paul. All right, thank you very much. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now.